Hello and welcome to Pixel Magic Tutorials. I am your host Geekman, and today we're going to learn how to create corroded metal textures in Photoshop from scratch without using any images or downloadable content. It's all done in Photoshop using layer styles and other filters. So before we begin, a couple of things I need to get out of the way right off the bat. Number one, I am using Photoshop CC 2017. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, some of the effects may not work as expected. Number two, I am using Windows. If you're using a Mac, then when I say hit the Control key on the keyboard, that means hit the Command key. And when I say hit the Alt key on the keyboard, that means hit the Option key. So with all of that out of the way, let's begin by hitting Control N on the keyboard to bring up the new image dialog box. And let's name this new image as Corroded Metal, because that's what we're making. And the width this time is going to be 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, 150 pixels per inch, RGB color 8-bit, background does not matter, we're going to be changing that. Adobe RGB 1998 and square pixels. Hit create and we're ready to begin. The first thing that we need to do is to change our background color to be 50% gray. And the way that we're going to do that is just click on your foreground background color or your foreground color, doesn't matter. And we're going to change it to 80, 80, 80, which is exactly 50% gray. Hit OK. And then we're going to hit Alt and backspace. It is now filled with gray. Then we're going to change our foreground and background back to the default black and white. Now you can do that by clicking on the little black and white icon over here on the toolbar, or you can hit D on the keyboard and that will change it back to its default black and white. Now that we've done that, we want to unlock and rename our background. So double click on it to bring up the layer icon here, the dialog box. And let's rename this Base Rust, because it will form the basis of our Rust a corroded metal effect. So here's what we need to do now. Now what we need to do is go to Filter, Noise, and Add Noise, because we're going to, the base of our rusty corroded metal texture needs to have this kind of noise, kind of ugly looking background. So the amount that we're looking for is 165%, uniform and monochromatic. Hit OK, and we are now ready with our base Rust layer. Now we need to create a brand new layer. You can go over here to the new layer icon in the layers palette, click on that, and we now have a new layer. Double click, and let's rename it Clouds 1. All right. Now that we have our Clouds 1 layer, we're going to want to go to Filter, Render, and Clouds. So let's go to Filter, Render, and Clouds. We now have some clouds here in our Clouds 1 layer. Yay, everybody's happy. So next we need to go to our filter gallery, and we're going to do two filters in the same filter gallery filter. Okay, so go to Filter, go to Filter Gallery, and I've already got it set up. But the way that you're going to do it is you're going to start with watercolor, which is found under Artistic. The bottom right one under Artistic is watercolor. You click on that and you're going to make it brush detail of 3, shadow intensity of 0, texture of 3. And then what you can do is you just click here for new effect layer, like so, and it would go up to the top. We don't need this one, so I'm just going to delete it. I just wanted to show you how to do it. And once you have the new one up here, click on it. It'll be watercolor already. And what you want to do is you want to go down to Angled Strokes, which is right here under Brush Strokes. So you want to go down here to Angled Strokes. Now that you are on Angled Strokes, you want to go to Direction Balance is 50, Stroke Length is 12, Sharpness is 7. Once you have that set, you want to go over here to OK, hit OK, and our clouds layer now looks like this. Once we have done that, we're going to add a couple of layer styles to this clouds layer. So let's go down here to our layer styles, and let's go to our gradient overlay. So the first one that we're doing is gradient overlay. And the gradient overlay that we are using is going to be a blend mode of color. Dither is unchecked, opacity is 100%, and the gradient that we're using is this guy right here, which is called yellow, pink, green. Okay, it's found, if you go over here to the sprocket, it is found over here under pastels. Click on pastels, hit OK, and you now have your pastel gradients to choose from. Choose this guy right here, and you're ready to go. Next, You want to make sure that style is reflected, reverse and align with layer are both checked. Angle is going to be 87 degrees and scale is going to be 150%. Next up, we're going to add in a pattern overlay. So in a pattern overlay, what we want is color burn, 45%. And the one that we're looking for here is called Stucco 1. Okay, and Stucco 1 can be found here under Texture 2. So just like we did with the gradient, you just click on the little sprocket over here and you go down here to Texture Fill 2. Click on that, hit OK, and it will show up right here. So it's the second one from the top on the left-hand side from me. It may be different on your monitor, but you're looking for Stucco 1. Once you have that, click OK. Scale is going to be 1000%, super huge, and link with layer is checked. That ends what we need to do with this particular layer. So let's hit OK. And then what we're going to do is change our Clouds 1 layer mode to darker color right here. And we're going to change its opacity to only 85%, like so. And this is the beginning of our rusty, corroded metal texture. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create another new layer named Clouds 2. So I showed you how to do it over here with the new layer icon, but you can also do it by hitting Control, Alt, Shift, and N at the same time. That creates a brand new layer 2. Then double click, name it Clouds 2, click off, and you're ready to do Clouds 2. Now, guess what we're going to do? We're going to go up here to Filter, Render, and Clouds again. So let's go up here to Filter, Render, and Clouds, and we now have clouds. Now what we want to do is we want to invert the clouds. You got to hit Control and the letter I on your keyboard to invert those clouds, and you saw that it changed a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we are going to go to add another layer style to this. So we're going to go down here to our layer effects. We're going to go to pattern overlay. Okay, and the pattern overlay that we are going to do is going to be color burn, and it's going to be 60%. And the pattern that we are looking for here is weave 3. Now this right here is weave 3. No, this one is weave 3 right here. That is what you're looking for. It's under Textures 2, the same as what we used before. Remember, Stucco 1 is right here. Weave 3 is right here towards the bottom. That's what you want it to be, so click on that. And then the scale that we're looking for here is going to be only 65%, like so. Okay, then we're going to hit OK, because that's all that we need here. Okay, then we're going to change layer, we're going to change the Clouds 2 layer mode to darker color, like that, and opacity is going to be only 70%. So let's go all the way down here to 70%. Okay, and this is what we've got so far. Now, all we have to do next is one more new layer, and then we're going to turn everything into a smart object, and then do another couple of layer styles to that smart object. But right now, this looks like kind of a mess. Don't worry, it gets better. So now what we need to do is create a brand new layer here called dripping. So let's go Control, Alt, Shift, and N on our keyboard. Let's name this drips right there. And what we're going to do, make sure that it's selected, is we're going to go up here to Filter. We're going to go over to Render, and we're going to go to Fibers. Now under Fibers, what you might want to do is you want to hit this little minus icon here to zoom out so you can see the entirety of your image. Because if you're only seeing a small part, you're not seeing what the kind of dripping that we want. And the variance that you want is going to be 10, and the strength is going to be 5. And then you want to hit randomize until you see something that looks, well, almost like what you see right here, which is mostly darker drips looking like they're coming down from the top, rolling down towards the bottom. That's what you're looking for. Now you can hit randomize as much as you want. That looks pretty cool. This one, not so much, because it's only on one side. And you just keep doing it till you see something you like. I like that. That looks good to me, so let's go with that. Hit OK. And there we have our fibers layer, our drips. Next, what we want to do is we want to change the drips layer mode to color dodge. So you want to go here to color dodge, and then what you want to do is change its opacity to only 75%. Okay, and you can see the drips here. You can see that it's beginning to look kind of weird, but not exactly like corroded metal. However, It all changes once we turn this into a smart object and add new layer styles to that smart object. So let's do that. Click on your top layer, hold down Shift, click on the bottom layer, right click, and then go to Convert to Smart Object. It will convert it into a smart object. Let's rename this as Corroded Metal, just so that we all know what it is. And then what we're going to do is go down here to our layer effects, and we're going to start with a color overlay. Now the color overlay is going to make it look more like rust, so we want the blend mode to be vivid light. The color that we're using here is 551C08. Hit OK, and the opacity that we're using here is going to be 70%. You can use 65 if you like. Doesn't really matter. I think 70% works great. It depends on what you're trying to do, but since this is now a layer effect, you can tweak this later on. The next thing that we need to do is we're going to add in our gradient overlay here, and we're going to make this luminosity. So go all the way down to the bottom for luminosity. The opacity that we are using is going to be only 15%. Reverse is on, align is on, and the gradient that we're looking for can be found in metals, and it's called steel bar. So the way that you get to it is you click on the little arrow, then you go over here to the sprocket, and you look down here for metals. You click on metals, you hit OK, and then what we're looking for is this guy right here, the black to white one, which is steel bar. Click on that, you've got what you need. Reflected. Angle here is going to be at 12% or 12 degrees, and the scale that we're looking for here is going to be 100, like so. Hit OK, and we now have our corroded metal texture built from scratch in Photoshop using nothing but Photoshop layer effects and layer modes. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and subscribe. I do new tutorials every Tuesday. Thank you, and once again, this is Geekman signing off for Pixel Magic Tutorials.